Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and in this video I want to talk to you about the upcoming turbulence that's going to be experienced with Mars in opposition to Uranus, and I also want to be able to give you some clear ways that you can begin to think about how to process and integrate this Mars-Uranus opposition. So that's my goal today, that's what I want to work through, and I'm very excited for this. So I think before I talk about that at depth, I think it's important to show you how this Saturn Direct that's taken place 2 days ago, if you haven't watched that video, I do encourage you to go back and watch it. It gives you some insight around this upcoming Saturn Direct and the work that is needed. But this Saturn Direct, I think is, as I said, it's deeply tied into what this Mars-Uranus opposition is about, particularly in the signs of Scorpio, Taurus, and also not to forget Venus in opposition to Neptune, and this is the Virgo-Pisces axis. Now, in the video of Saturn Direct, I talked a lot about what it is that we can do to begin orientating towards a healthy integration and the potential and the possibility of healing yourself through this very powerful Saturn through Pisces transit. But I want to just touch on a few things that I feel I can add to this process for us. So the first thing that I feel is important to look at and think about with this Saturn Direct is that Saturn, when we're running Saturnian complexes, okay, when we're running Saturn as an archetype within our consciousness that is, in a sense, not free, and we're not operating at the level that we can with this energy, we are running complexes like resentment, okay? We're running complexes like feeling overwhelmed and we're struggling with structure. There's a growing sense of apathy and a lack of agency. And oftentimes Saturnian process can be filled with a tremendous amount of grief and depression and heaviness. There's a lot of expectations that we have internalized from societal pressures as well as parental pressures, and then other forms of pressures that we have to deal with in terms of to be a human being. And these expectations can also deeply prevent or dampen our capacity to feel that we have agency and freedom within our energetic and emotional body. So this Saturn Direct energy is speaking to where we can begin to look at these areas within our lives and start to ask ourselves the questions, where may we be avoiding processing through the core reasons as to what is behind, right? What is behind the expectations that you feel that you're unable to work through. And that can look like recognizing that maybe you're taking on too much because there's an underlying feeling that you need to prove yourself, as an example. You may feel that it is your responsibility and your duty to, control the environment, because at a deeper part of yourself, an earlier part of your emotional and psychological development, it was safer for you to be counter-dependent. And so if you take on the responsibility and you kind of control the situation, it also puts you in a position of being distant, from letting other people, be a part of your emotional landscaping, because you might be disappointed by something, and that disappointment might trigger a deeper emotion of when the original disappointment took place. So this is the idea that I'm working with when I think about Saturn moving direct and the emotional growth that is for us here. Now, the Mars-Uranus opposition speaks to a catalyst, okay, where we get the opportunity to really get a tremendous amount of insight rapidly around how we can begin to decentralize our emotional connections or very deeply embedded beliefs that we hold about ourselves and about the world, that were formed and crystallized at an earlier part of our lives. Okay? The Scorpio-Taurus axis is all about excavation. So when you have Mars sitting there in opposition to Uranus, what we have here is the power and the possibility of being able to excavate deeply held and crystallized emotional beliefs that, influence our more conscious reality, but are really buried in something deeper within ourselves. Right? So that's the first piece of insight that I feel is very important to recognize with the current energy that we're experiencing at the moment. Right? This is the potential. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and look at the astrology chart, talk a little bit about that, and then I'll come back and kind of give you some more pointers on how to navigate Uranus and Mars opposition. Okay? Okay, so now you're looking at the chart of the moment, and you can see there that Mercury, Mars, and the Sun are all sitting together in Scorpio. And that's where I'm getting the insight, particularly what I talked about in the previous Saturn Direct video. So again, if you haven't watched that video, I highly encourage you to go watch that. That's where I'm getting the information on it's important during this time to begin to work through these more deeper, difficult, challenging emotions through communication. Right, Mercury, right? You need to begin to label the complexity and the feelings and the emotions that you're going through. And that can be difficult because it's like, I don't know how to label it. But you should start there, or I'm encouraging you to start there. That energy over there points to bringing to the surface the sun, right? The sun being light. So bring to the surface, bring to the light these emotions that are deeply crystallized and buried. Mars is saying, let's bring it through, let's have agency, let's bring it to the surface. And again, the Mercury is asking for us to begin labeling and communicating and stirring the emotion, get it moving. So if it means that you need to begin moving your emotions by doing dances, if you need to be moving your emotions by doing somatic work, if you need to be moving your emotions through talking, connecting, drawing, art, creativity, whatever it is, do that, okay? You need to get that energy moving in your energetic system so that you can start processing what is held deeply within our somatic energetic biofield, right? Our energy, our biology. So that opposition, that cluster over there at the top in Scorpio is where I'm getting that information from. Now, the Venus in opposition to Neptune, right? Neptune sitting at 25 degrees, Venus sitting in Virgo, the Virgo-Pisces axis. Now, for those of you that have gone through the Evolutionary Astrology Immersion course, you'll know what I mean when I talk about your abduction story, okay? Now, very briefly, an abduction story is simply the experience that you as a human being have gone through where some tragedy, some deep emotional experiences has happened and it has pulled you into an experience of suffering, of grief, of sadness, where essentially you have lost innocence, right? You have lost an idealistic ideal of how the world looks. You've traded that innocence for a more reserved, real, sometimes it can be very kind of cynical attitude towards life because you've been hurt by it, right? It abducted you. You've been pulled into the underworld to experience life at a more difficult level. Oftentimes these experiences can be very difficult for us because we don't know how to work our way through an abduction story. So we remain more fractured or more disassociated or more emotionally resentful of life versus seeing the power of sort of taking wisdom from the experience, right? And then gifting that as you move forward for other people. And it brings us into the heart, right? It brings us into what it means to be human, which is that life is difficult, life is tough. And nobody on this planet has not had an experience that has been challenging or difficult or painful or sad to have to deal with. So when you're dealing with Pisces Virgo axis, right, you're dealing with the experience of coming into the form, coming into the body, coming into grief, coming into sadness. And so with this opposition between Neptune and Venus, along with Mars-Uranus, there is a powerful opportunity right now for us to begin healing our abduction stories, or healing our experiences of resentment or sadness or pain or suffering that we've had in the past, where we may have not had the clarity or understanding or capacity to process or deal with, the things that were occurring for us at a different point in time, because they will keep reappearing in our consciousness, and they can often possess our emotional experience of things because we are still plagued by the unresolvedness of it, right? So that's this potential that I feel is deeply held within these archetypes at the moment. Okay, so that's the astrology chart, and that's where I'm drawing my inspiration from when it comes to the conversation I'm having with you here. Now, when it comes to Uranus processes or Uranian processes and Aquarius processes, you have to keep in mind that this energy, this principle of Uranus, has to do with decentralization and acceleration of awareness or energy, like breaking it apart from something that's central and moving in a different direction. There is no specificness, it's just fracture it, just move it away, decentralize it, take it in a different place, experiencing something new. So when Mars comes into contact with Uranus, what happens is there is a very strong pressure for repressed energy to erupt into your consciousness, right? To come into the field. And this doesn't necessarily mean that it's specific to you. It could just be that there is a lot of kind of unpredictable, bubbling energy that just erupts out of nowhere, and your nervous system and your biology, like your physical biology, can get very distorted from the experience. It can get sort of off balance. And it can be incredibly disturbing to your psyche to have these bumps come up and experience it like this, like, whoa, Jesus, there's an emotional feeling, and oh, well, there's stress here. And you can oftentimes feel very fatigued by Mars-Uranus aspects, right? If you've got Mars in opposition to Uranus, Mars square Uranus, Mars conjunction, I know that you have gone through and do probably experience states of complete fatigue because you feel so sort of overly stimulated by the electricity that moves through your body at such a rapid rate, right? So as a form principle, right, as energy exists in its form principle, this Mars-Uranus energy is like electricity that's now like doing this, right? It's really, really coming out. And that can be very turbulent. It can feel very unhinged, right? So this is not a time to act upon these emotional eruptions and continue to keep feeling this necessary need to try to make sense of it, okay? Uranus processes are only integrated over time. So my advice to you here with this energy is to allow the eruption to take place, to recognize the turbulence, but at the same time to not try to figure it all out, to go like, okay, this is moving through me. I'm just taking my time to kind of ground myself. I'm not going to try to stress myself as much as I need to. I'll try to get a little bit more sleep, try to get a little bit more self-care, because there's going to be a lot of information that's going to spring into your consciousness. And when it springs into your consciousness, you need time for the energy to kind of settle back into the emotional field, okay? So, as I said, Saturn over the next 7 months is going to create an arc of development. The Mars-Uranus energy, along with Venus opposed Neptune, is going to create a healing container and a theme that this Saturn Direct arc of development is going to look like. And again, as I said, that will look like all of the very strong emotions erupting into your consciousness right now. You're seeing things. And it's decentralizing you, right? You may notice yourself fracturing in terms of beliefs or ideas or points of views. That's okay. Let it just fracture, because the Neptune opposed Venus aspect is holding the integration of these experiences, and it comes through over the next 6 months, right? Over the next 7 months with Saturn moving direct. So over this next 6 or 7 month period, allow this energy to land within your field. You will have periodic insights that you will be able to emotionally integrate over the next 6 months, okay? So there's a tremendous amount of healing that's going to take place for us but they will happen sporadically, and they'll happen when we have this emotional outburst, and then like maybe 3 days later, you might come back to that conversation and say, hey, this is what I was really feeling. This is what I noticed with myself. This is where this belief system is causing me to have a false belief about something. And so that's what that looks like. That's what the model looks like. Arc of development, Saturn Direct. Lots of emotions coming to the surface really rapidly now with Mars Uranus, but don't try to figure it out. Just kind of let it be. Notice the experience, recognize, try to not get caught up in the drama. And then over the period of time, as this energy becomes more landing in your consciousness, you'll start to notice as you go back to those eruptions that are taking place now, and you'll start to have flashes of insight. You'll start to see deeper within yourself. And as I said, move your body, get into an activity that allows you to work through your feelings and your emotions, get that energy clean within your body. Okay? All right, so that is a wrap for today. I'll leave a link in the description for working together with you on a longer term process. I'll leave that in the description, as well as leaving a link to the Saturn Direct video. Okay? Before you go, let me know how this video landed for you. Please share your thoughts in the comments, as well as how your own Mars Uranus experiences have been taking place. That's it for me. Thanks very much, guys.